Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 80 of Learn and Become podcast, where we hope to inspire you to continue learning English. Today, we'll talk about be the first person to say good morning. It's the very non-standard title for an episode, but there is a lesson behind this title, which is more like a sentence. And it's something I've been thinking about for quite a while now. I like running in the morning, and I've been doing it I've always done it ever since I started playing soccer when I was 9 years old. But after I stopped playing soccer, I continued to do that. And for the last like 7 years, maybe 6, 7 years, I've been doing it consistently, and I try to run at least twice a week. I used to run every day, but it wasn't very good for my knee. Actually, for both of my knees. So I took a shift. I changed a little bit the way I exercise. I run like twice a week, and then I do some like high intensity training at home in the other 5 or 6 days of the week. I mean, like, 4 or 5 days of the week. It depends on how many days I work out. I try to do 6 or 7 days a week. But anyway, the point is, I always run in the streets because I prefer running outside than just running like a treadmill or doing like loops around something. I like to run on the streets. I feel like it's more dynamic. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It just works best for me. So depending on where I live, I pick different places to run. For example, right now we live in an area where there's a lot of woods, and it's neighborhood with. It is close to the city, but it's not like downtown. So there are not many stores or things like that. There are some farms around where we live, and also houses. So it's an area where there are not a lot of people on the streets. But usually when I go out for a run, I see a few people, but not as much as I did when I lived downtown. And we lived downtown for maybe 3 or 4 years. And when we lived in those places, I used to run in the neighborhood where we lived. I wouldn't get the car, drive to a place where I could run. I feel like the easiest or the easier we make the process, more likely we are to actually do it. So, for example, if I were to get the car, drive to a place, to a running track where I would exercise, the probability of me not doing it would be much higher than if I just run where I live, in the neighborhood where I live. So we lived in two different apartments. Both were downtown. One of them was in an area with. Both were in an area with a lot of people, but one of them was more. Feel like it was a busier area than the other one. There was a lot of people and also lots of stores and businesses and all of it. But in those places, whenever I went out to run, I could go as early as you can imagine. There would still be people out in the streets. Maybe not as much as it would if I went like at 8 or 9 a.m. But even if I went to run at 5 a.m., which I did for a while, like 5:30, 5:30-ish a.m., there would still like be considerable amount of people in the streets. And when I'm running, I like to socialize, meaning that I say good morning to people. So when I go out for a run, I tend to just greet people hey, good morning. How's it going? Like usually I don't stop to engage in conversations unless I see somebody I know, like a friend or something, and if they stop and ask something, I'll stop for conversation. But usually I just say good morning. Sometimes like, how's it going? Have a good day, something like this. And I noticed a thing, especially when we lived in those two places where there were more people in the streets. Um, if I walked or if I ran past a person and I said good morning, probably they would say good morning back, or they usually do. Not everybody will say good morning. Not everybody will say hi, even if you do so. That reminds me of a funny story. We live in a city, but it's not a huge city. And out of all of the states in Brazil, we are known for being very friendly. Brazilians are friendly in general, but our state is considered probably the friendliest state, where people are nicer, they like talking, they're very kind, and it's also known as a countryside type of state. I don't know if that's a good comparison, but maybe kind of like a Brazilian uh, rural state, even though it's not rural at all. The probably third or fourth biggest city in the country is in our state. But for whatever reason, we're known for this. And when I first went to New York, I remember going out in the streets and I would walk past people. I'd say like, hey, good morning. Because here, not everybody does it. I do. I think it's something I learned from my, actually, for sure, that's something. They're very friendly. So when they're walking around, they see people, they go like, hey, what's up? Hey. So when I'm out in the streets and somebody look at me like, say, hey, good morning, I'll give them a smile or something. I try to do that in New York. That wasn't very accepted. I had noticed people would. But that's not even the point. What I was saying is that I noticed that when I'm running, I say good morning, there is a probability of people saying good morning. I would say like probably 8 out of 10 people will reply, will say good morning back to me. And like a couple of people won't. I don't know if some of them don't hear it. Some of them just pretend they didn't hear it. Or maybe some of them are just not in a good day. But I also realized that when I don't say good morning, most of the time, people will not say good morning. I don't know if it's because I'm running. It's because, I don't know, could create hundreds of hypotheses why people won't say good morning, but they will reply to your good morning when you. I'm just laying a foundation to say why the title of this episode is Be the First One to Say Good Morning. When you're learning English, we tend to look for opportunities where we can practice, where we can expose what we know, where we can put our English out there, speak, say something. And a lot of people say they don't have the opportunities to do so, but they're never the ones to say good morning first. And if you're not the one that will say good morning first, there is a probability people just won't say good morning. And then you won't engage in a conversation. This good morning thing is not only a good morning. It could also be like, I have a friend, he does speak English now, but I remember when he was learning English, he would not miss an opportunity to practice. So whenever he saw somebody that knew English or that could communicate in English or whatever, he would always try to engage in an English conversation. Always. Every single time. He wouldn't miss a chance. And that was great for him. Nowadays, he does speak English. He's even an English teacher. He worked in a couple of English schools. He's also started his own project later on. I think he stopped his project. Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's not even the point. I don't know if he did or if he's still working on it. The main point is he was always the one who would say good morning, who would start the conversation, who would engage in the dialogue. And that was excellent for him because it changed his life. If we think about it. Whenever he got a chance, hey, which word is that? Or can we practice a little? Or can I try to say something? Or can you teach me something? Or I have this question. Can you help me with that? So being the first one to say good morning means you're the first one to engage in the conversation. And that will lead to having more chances to practice. So being the first one to say good morning in the English learning process means that you will be the one creating more opportunities where you can actually engage in real life conversation. That will help you to build up your confidence, to learn new vocabulary, to learn new things, and especially to have more mistakes. And I say especially because the more mistakes you have, the better. And yes, you listen to that right. When you have more mistakes, great. For two reasons. One, that means you're trying. And if you're trying, you are learning. If you're trying, you are improving. That's number one. Number two, every single mistake you have, you're either learning something new or reinforcing something you already knew, but for whatever reason, you didn't remember it. For example, if you say you is, go like, oh, shoot, I know it's you are. You already know it, but when you have this mistake, that will help you to review that piece of information and develop your ability to communicate to the next level, which is great. So that's going to build up confidence. Also, what if the person you met was, I'll use a good morning example. What if the person you see, they kind of wanted to say good morning? That actually happened to me today. I was running this morning, which is why I kind of thought about recording about this. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, but for whatever reason, I never really recorded anything about it. I don't think if I've written about it either. But I ran past this lady and was like looking at me like, what in the world? This person is running on this time. And then I just gave her a smile and say, hey, good morning. Like, yeah, good morning. And then she was very kind. So probably she thought about saying like, hey, good morning or something. She didn't. Why? Maybe she thought it was weird. Maybe she thought, I don't know, like she would cause any trouble as I was running and wasn't social interaction. True, I was. And maybe sometimes people want to engage, want to interact. Getting back to the English example, maybe the person is craving for an opportunity to practice English as well. just like you are, but the they won't be the one to say good morning. They won't be the one to take the first. They won't be the one to start this dialogue. So if you are the one starting the conversation, if you're the one taking the first step, you're the one starting it, that means you will help yourself and you also help others, because a lot of people just won't have the courage to do that. And as I've mentioned, that applies to life, literally saying good morning. You could create a bunch of opportunities by the fact, simply by saying good morning. For example, let's say you're at a building and then you take the elevator and you say good morning to the person that's right next to you. Turns out you guys are going to the same floor, and it turns out that person works at the company where you're going, like at the office. And then you guys were able to create that first bond, that first connection, elevator, even if through something silly like a good morning. It's really hot today, isn't it? Nice shoes. How you doing? I don't know, whatever. But let's say there are two candidates or two prospect suppliers for a job, and you had the chance to say good morning at this elevator or lift, which is the same thing in British people's lift in the United States. But you were able to take a step forward and to be a step ahead of the person that was a competitor, just because you said, I don't feel like it's ever too much to engage and to be nice. That's not going to hurt you at all. But it can create lots of. So it's the negative effects are none. The positive ones are many. And even when you say good morning and the person doesn't reply, kind of tells more about the person or about the day the person than it does. And a great example of this is one of the apartments we lived downtown. We had this neighbor. Sometimes we would arrive same time as he did, and we would go like to the parking lot, or park the cars. And whenever we were just walking upstairs, we didn't have an elevator in this building. It was only 4 floors, and it's not a requirement to have an elevator. So they just have it, or really funny. But anyway, whenever we're walking upstairs, I would always say good morning, like good morning, how you doing? 9 out of 10 times he wouldn't reply. My wife told me, "You doing that?" Like, I don't know. I don't know if he's having a bad day. I don't know. I don't know if he can't hear me. There are many things I can't control, and I don't know. But if I stop saying good morning to people because that one guy want morning back, um, what if I just lose the habit of doing it? What if that one day I would have said good morning was the day he was having a bad day, and that would make his day better, or maybe could open the door for a conversation where somehow we could help him, or talking about work related opportunities. What if there was an opportunity where we could bond through something, a project, idea? Not in this case specifically, as it was just it was our neighbor, very old man. Maybe it's just not that nice. But using the elevator example at office, You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you could create an opportunity out of nowhere. Said hi, said good morning. So being the first one to say good morning will open up many doors, and will lead to, not necessarily, not always, but it has the potential to lead to some cool opportunities that you wouldn't have had if you didn't say good. That's the first point you have to. And the worst thing that could happen is the person curse you back instead of saying good morning and say good morning for you. I'm having a bad day, which also could be a cool chance for you to say, what's up? What's happening? Why is your day so hard? You could engage in a conversation. And that applies to English, that applies to life, that applies to socialization, that applies to all of the things. So if you're not having a good day, be the first one to say good morning. Might make your day better. If you're having a good day, be the first one to say good morning. You could make somebody else's day better. If you're trying to learn English, be the first one to engage in a conversation, to bring it up, to try to create a perspective that will also happen. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, share with one, and I'll see you in the next episode. You have a good one. Good morning.